last season, you just saw him not keeping up. And that's something I never saw in Darrelle Revis. He'd get beat from time to time, but not like this season. And yes, the secondary, he didn't have the safety help that he always had. The defensive line was not putting the pass rush on. So it's not fair, really, to completely kill him. But Darrelle Revis even said his body wasn't where it needed to be, and he just didn't play well last year. That's why he's not a Jet.
And Revis Island, I mean, I don't think you could ever throw Revis Island out there for the way that he performed last year. I mean, there was a real estate boom on Revis Island last year. I mean, I remember seeing infomercials late at night with Eric Estrada come buy property on Revis Island. That's how bad it was. But look, you have to move on, and he can make whatever excuse that he wants to make, that he was out of shape, that, you know, he had a wrist surgery the previous offseason that didn't allow him to train properly, whatever. The bottom line is this. The Jets, as you alluded to earlier, they're getting younger. They had to clear a lot of space in salary cap to be able to compete here for the upcoming season. I don't know, and it's still too premature to say how good or how bad they're going to be for 2017, but you have to get a look at some of these younger players, because the guys you were paying all that money to, you went 5-11. You have to turn it over when it's not working.
Yeah, they don't have a choice. And as for Revis and his legacy, I think everyone's going to forget about the past 2 years and remember the first ones when he was here. I think he's going to be remembered as an all-time great. I think his number is going to go up in the Ring of Honor, and I think he deserves it. I think, as you said, one of, if not the best defenders the Jets have ever had. People forget that he got a ring with the Patriots. It's amazing that Jet fans don't resent Revis for doing what he did, going to Tampa and then going to New England, but they don't. And I don't think people are even going to remember that because the Patriots win so much. Let's face it, everybody's got a ring.
You forget he was even on the team. Exactly. You're thinking Belichick, Brady, and Malcolm Butler, not Revis.
But people will remember how effective he was, especially when the Jets made those early playoff runs when he was here. He was a game-changing corner, and I think his legacy, although Jet fans may be glad to see him go right now, he's going to be remembered very fondly.
Absolutely. He was superb. Like I said, and nowadays, and you know this in the NFL, right, the rules are kind of designated to where defensive players are a little bit hamstrung, right? There's not as much contact that they allow. So the whole term of shutdown corner, that's few and far between in the NFL present day. Revis was that guy. You know, the Revis Island, the whole thing. He was that lockdown, shutdown corner. And if you weren't around to watch him, people are going to go back and look at his stats. They're going to go on the internet and they're going to say, oh, well, Darrelle Revis, he didn't have as many interceptions as, let's say, some of these other corners.
No one threw at him.
Because no one threw at him, exactly. And interceptions are a poor statistic to judge the true value of a cornerback. But he was a superb player. And, you know, if you want to throw out that Mount Rushmore for the New York Jets, Joe Namath, Don Maynard, Curtis Martin, Darrelle Revis, he's certainly on that.
What do you put, Gastineau maybe in there? I'm trying to think of other defenders who will be remembered as all-time greats.
Flacco and Revis, those are the two guys, and then everybody else get in line after that. Right now, though, we are foaming at the mouth, and at some point during the offseason, the Jets are going to have to turn their attention to a pretty important matter for the upcoming season, like who's going to be the quarterback. One name reportedly set to be in play is Niners QB Colin Kaepernick, who's said to be on the verge of opting out of his contract, thus becoming a free agent. John, let me say this right off the bat. If I'm the Jets, if I'm a Jet fan, I do not want Colin Kaepernick anywhere near the Jets. Jets uniform, the color green,
the state
anything.
of New York.
The state of New York, anything. Colin Kaepernick is not the answer. And let's be honest. If you put Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady on the Jets in 2017 with the roster that we think they're going to have, that still might not be good enough. So why would you waste time in your pursuit of finding the next franchise quarterback, whoever that may be, wherever he is? Colin Kaepernick, I think, is more trouble than he's worth. And not only that, he's just not that good.
He wasn't starting in San Francisco until the end of the season, and San Francisco is one of the worst teams in the NFL. He's not going to help the Jets. 3 years ago, you want to talk about this? Okay, maybe you're like, hey, we got a Super Bowl quarterback coming over here. But now Kaepernick, he is not an effective quarterback anymore. I always worry about quarterbacks who run as much as they throw because the tread on the tires gets really thin very, very quickly. I don't think he's the one who can help this team, especially because it's a young team. When you look at all the names that are being banded around, it's hard to say who would be right. For me, and I know I'm going to get killed for this, I think Jay Cutler might be the best of the bunch.
Jay Cutler?
Let me tell you why. One, he's the only guy out there, really, with true NFL experience and all-pro at one point. Two, the coordinator has some familiarity with Jay Cutler. Three, he can play in New York, and I know what that means when I'm saying it. He would be so entertaining. Come on, you have him and Marshall and Forte. You got the whole Bears offense
getting eaten alive in Chicago.
I know.
think New York is really going to cut it? And you mentioned those other two guys, Forte, Brandon Marshall. They tried that together with Cutler 3 years ago. So now we're going to age them 3 years, bring them over to a bad football team. That is a recipe for disaster.
Oh,
disaster.
He's a perfect New York Jet. That's exactly what I'm saying. What are you going to do? Bring over Mike Glennon?
Mike Glennon, that's the guy that I would
tell
take.
Me why.
Because you don't have to sign him to a 10-year deal or anything like that. He's a bridge. He's a hold the fort type of guy.
He's a backup.
He's not. He's only a backup because they took Jameis Winston. He's an effective player. And look, if you had a game tomorrow, Mike Glennon versus Bryce Petty or Christian Hackenberg, Glennon is a more attractive option. He's got more experience. He started for 2 years.
There's a reason, though, that he was on the bench. And it's not just because Jameis Winston is.
Sure it is.
That's part of it. Beforehand, he wasn't starting when Winston wasn't there. He started for a little bit. He got banged up. He was effective in spurts. He reminds me of all those quarterbacks who look fantastic as backups, and then they become the starter in a new market, and what happens more often than not? Complete failure.
You taking one in the draft, though? With that number 6 pick, are you taking a draft?
You know,
I
don't know. Like, Deshaun Watson is interesting to me, but no. I think you have two young guys already in Petty and Hackenberg you could take your chances with. I'd like to see a guy who has NFL snaps, similar to when Fitzpatrick came over 2 years ago, has some experience, and maybe the guys behind him can learn a couple of things. At that pick, though, they need to get the best player available, and I don't think it's going to be a QB.
Just stay away from Colin Kaepernick, please. Jet fans saw him up close and personal last year in that game against the Jets, and he was awful. That is not the answer.
I agree with you 100%.